Hi, guys, and welcome back to Sacrificially Speaking.
Yep.
We are doing another episode in our biblical/spiritual gifts, whatever you want to call it, series. This is episode 5, and today we're going to be focusing on the support and service gifts. So helps, giving, administration, mercy. Okay.
No, it's not going to be
Yeah,
boring.
no,
it's not gonna be
you're
boring. It's going to
fine.
be good. Don't tune out.
How do these gifts reveal the heart of Christ as a servant leader in a way that, like, you can't from the pulpit?
Well, I mean, James says, you say you have faith and I have works. I'll show you my faith by my works. There's some things that they have to be demonstrated. And I think we have way too much rhetoric and not enough demonstration in our churches. And so these service gifts are, in my opinion, proof of what we're preaching, and us, displaying what is on the inside of us, the power that God has given us. In Acts 2 or Acts 1, when God said, I'm going to pour out my spirit on you, he said, and you shall be witnesses. He didn't say you go out and witness. He said, you shall be witnesses. And that's the way I look at service gifts, hospitality gifts. These are ways for us to demonstrate the heart of God, to be the hands and feet of Jesus in a practical way to hurting people. And I think those things speak much louder than a man with a microphone and speakers. I honestly believe that those things have more impact than what I preach. That's really the truth. I do believe that with all my heart.
Do you think that these gifts often determine the ceiling of growth for a church?
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. As I shared with you before, people have made up their mind whether they're coming back to our church in the first 5 to 7 minutes of walking onto the property.
Yeah.
So now if that's the case, our parking lot team, our greeters at the door, our how the atmosphere feels, the friendliness of the people, all of those things are now much more important, because within 5 to 7 minutes, they've made up their mind whether they're coming back or not. Doesn't matter how good the worship is, doesn't matter how great the preaching is. The truth is, they're not going to come back if they don't feel they don't feel something hospitable about that atmosphere. So in my opinion, those greeters out there, way more important than my preaching.
Yeah, which is what we hear the most, like, as a staff. When somebody comes to visit, they care more that they were welcomed by the church than they care that, I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, that was a really great service, but that's few and far between. Usually it has to do with the friendliness of the people.
Most people, when they come in here, might be impacted by what I preach, but they won't remember what I preach, but they will remember how they feel.
I think I can remember like 3 of your sermons. So, like, off the top of my head. But you could remember every single time somebody was rude to you in church. That's
I
just the
almost
way
flipped
it is.
this couch over right there. That's all right, though.
How many sermons do you remember of your own?
All of them. I memorize them all. You know that.
Yeah, maybe for Sunday. You don't got every single one of those memorized.
I don't know.
Anyway.
You can't ever tell. Your pastor's smarter than you think he is.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Anyway. No, but when we first came, you were on the Christians Are Crazy series.
Yeah.
I did like that one. I do remember those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
And then it got boring for a little bit. No, I'm joking.
What in the world kind of
Anyway,
podcast are we doing?
it's just attacking him today, actually.
I know.
Which,
this is what we do when the cameras aren't running.
when... Sorry, I'm trying to be like, how nice are we to people?
everybody feels love when they come to church, but they think we hate each other now.
When these gifts are absent or ignored, what spiritual consequences does that have on the church body?
Oh, well, the miraculous, it doesn't flow. It's you first of all, in a very practical way, if these gifts aren't operating correctly, people are coming into the sanctuary with barriers up that you have to crawl over. and it could mean heaven or hell for somebody. Could mean life and death for somebody. I mean, we had a meeting with a couple not too long ago about one of their children that literally a hug or not, a hello or not, was whether they were going to commit suicide or not. It was literally life and death for them. So in a very practical sense, that's the case. But on the supernatural sense, you know, Abraham had a promise from God that he would have a child, and that promise was out there for over 20 years. And it was when the angels were on their way down to Sodom and Gomorrah to destroy it that they said they were going to go by Abraham's tent. And the scripture says they made like they were just going to keep walking. And Abraham saw them and compelled complete strangers to come in.
Yeah.
And he fed them and he showed them hospitality. And what's interesting is about that story is whenever they left, on their way out, they turned to Sarah and said, by this time next year, you'll have a baby. That promise was in a state of incubation until the gift of hospitality was released. And that was the key to the timing of that miracle. And I think there's miracles, not to mention the times that Paul warns that we entertain angels unaware. So what if that stranger coming in our door is actually an angel secret shopping for the Lord to see how his church is?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. I know it's a little facetious and I'm playing with that a little bit, but I'm just saying that it's a reality that there's angels that attend our church.
No, everybody take that serious. Best behavior on Sundays.
I don't think you're fooling an angel when they go.
But so you are notably overly hospitable in some cases. You don't believe that just in our church, but you believe that in your home. Where do you think the line is for that into how far you should go with it?
I think you need to ask my wife Pam because I don't have a line really. I mean,
I'm going to start just showing up to your house.
Listen, in reality, I've never had anybody really abuse that. In 36 years, I've never had anybody abuse that. She's talking about we always have people in our house. Mm-hmm. We're always inviting people over to the house. And it's not for counseling. It's just for relationship and fun and talking. And, we have our private time. We don't do it every single day of the week, but we're pretty strategic about how we do it, but we're always open. I mean, we're always open, and, there's times we love to do stuff spontaneous with people. They'll call and say, hey, what y'all doing tonight? Nothing, let's go eat, Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just about being, it's not something I do. It's how I live. It's how me and Pam live, and Adam lives the same way. He has people at his house all the time cooking for him, and it's just part of our life. I mean, I don't know. I just can't imagine Jesus never hanging out with any of his church people. And then the thing that shocks me is every time we have a group of people over, before they leave, in front of everybody else, somebody will break down crying and saying, Pastor, thank you for having me over. It's the first time I've ever been out with my pastor. This is the first time I've ever been to a pastor's house. And I've been going to church all my life, and I'm thinking, how sad is that you've never been in your pastor's house?
And I also kind of wonder this because it's not hard for us to know why people want to be around their church people. Mm-hmm. So, where is the line for that for you, though? Like, for you and Pam, as to, because that becomes, really heavy sometimes because you have all these people in your home, and then they do hurt you over time. Well,
that's a tough one. I'm going to admit to you, I still don't know how to deal with that. I made a decision many years ago that I was going to have one or two reactions. There's only two options. You either harden your heart, and then you become bitter and unrelationable, and then you're untouchable, and therefore you can't do ministry. Or You do what Jesus does. If somebody steps on your heart, you dust it off and you put it back out there again. And you just keep loving people, and you make up your mind that you're going to love people. And that flows from the love of God on the inside of you. That's not a natural thing. The natural thing is to close up. That'd be the most natural thing. But the love of God on the inside, and I've had times I wanted to close up, but the love of God on the inside of me convicts me and says, no, you can't be like this and touch my people. So you have to keep a tender heart toward God no matter how much they hurt you. And that's a hard thing to do. It's harder, it's easier to talk about it than it is to do it.
Yeah. All right. In continuation of I'm just attacking you today. We're going
This is beat up on Pastor Doug.
I promise I love it. But your weakness is your heart. So that's what we're discussing. Anyway, how can the gift of mercy hinder discipleship when not paired with truth?
Well, if you're all truth, no mercy, you're going to be very legalistic, very dogmatic, very ritualistic. You'll end up being very religious. And if you're all mercy and no truth, then you're going to be very sloppy. Anything goes. There'll be no order, nothing but a spirit of lawlessness running around. So the balance between those, it's like everything else. Everything in life is balance, and it's that way with God. The balance of those two are very, very important. Mercy and truth have to meet together, and great things come out of that. But, I'm more mercy-driven than I am truth-driven. Yeah. Now, I am truth-driven in my preaching, and I live truth to the best of my ability.
Like I said, his weakness is his heart. He loves everybody a little too much.
Yeah, she says I love everybody too much. I try to, whenever, you want me to jump into that?
Jump into it. Go for it.
The reason I do that is because in Hebrews chapter 4, I think it's chapter 4, it talks about Aaron and his sons who were the first priest. And he says everybody's called after the order of Aaron. And then he says this, that they may offer sacrifice for their sin and for others. When a person's serving in ministry, it's a dangerous thing for them to not be aware of their own weakness. Failure in ministry very rarely is moral in nature. Most failure in ministry is mirror in nature. In other words, they don't see themselves clearly. So therefore, they start thinking more highly of themselves than they ought. I'm very aware of my weaknesses.
I feel like, all in all, though, your weaknesses are pretty good.
Well, that's because I've been working on it a long time. But, through the years, I've had to battle various things just like you and everybody else. But even then, there's something inside me that says, hey, you don't need to jump on this person now just because you think you got the victory over it. Mm-hmm. I had to bring you out of that. You need to have a little mercy. Remember, I could have took you out, but I didn't. And so I don't know. That's just the way I think. A lot of that probably has to do with my raising. I was raised that way by my parents and my grandparents. You were not allowed to sit around and talk about people in our house. You weren't allowed to sit around and talk about people's failures. And we don't do that in my house. And my family will tell you, I'll stop them in a heartbeat. It's like one of those things that drives me insane. It's a pet peeve because I try to live above that. And that's such a dangerous trap. Gossip and slander are such an easy sin to fall into. And a lot of the church world will complain about all of this immorality in the world, but they can't control their mouth. And it's just as much sin. And so for me, I'm aware of that, you know. And I'm tenderhearted. Yes, I'm tenderhearted. And yes, I love people to my own hurt. I'll just keep loving them, keep trying to work with them. But I do that because that's what the Lord's done with me. And if it had not been for him being on my side and being there even when I had failed, I probably wouldn't make it. So, yeah, I'm driven by that. And I get frustrated when I don't see other people. There's only, all the commandments are summed up in one, really two, and he said that's likened to the one, so they're tied together. There's one commandment: love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And it's hard to do that when you have a weird self-love that says, I'm better than they are. And Jesus was very upset about that. He looked at the Pharisees and he said, who do you think you are? You're over here praying and you're looking across at somebody else praying and saying, Father, I thank you that I'm not like them. He said, who do you think you are? He said, you're a brood of vipers, full of poison. You're a den of thieves. Jesus was frustrated by that. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, yeah. So I try not to go there because I don't want to make God mad at me. And I mean, I know.
You don't want to make anyone mad at you.
Yeah, but I really don't want God.
God.
Yeah, I really don't want God mad at me.
All right. How do you intentionally raise up servant gifts in other people?
Well, first of all, you kind of try to teach them, make them aware that they are gifted. That's the starting point. A lot of people think they don't have anything to offer. Mm-hmm. But everybody has something to offer. But what I do is, beyond that, is just try to make space for them to be able to do what they're called to do. But making space means making room for them to fail, because they're going to fail. And we as leaders don't want to give up things or give people opportunity because we know they're going to mess up. And so therefore, we want to hold on so we don't have to pick up the pieces. Well, first of all, we don't have to pick up the pieces. Why can't we teach them to pick up the pieces? And in doing so, they learn how not to do it again. Because if you're failing and you're not willing to pick up the pieces, then you probably don't need to be in that position, right? Mm-hmm. But most people I've ever been around, if I gave them something to do and they messed up, and then I came back and said, hey, you know, I appreciate what you're doing here, but this is how we have to do it, and here's the reason why, and I gave them a good understanding, there was some good communication. Normally, most people I've worked with has literally bent over backwards to try to be the best that they could be. And so it's just very important to make room for people to do what God's called them to do, and be patient with them and work with them and teach them. Like I was sharing with you, when it comes to children, you know, with parents, I tell parents, when it's a failure, you teach. When it's rebellion, you discipline. And most stuff going on in church is not rebellion. It's just failures. You know, somebody missed the mark. That's what a transgression is, right? It's missing the mark. We do it every day in some degree. And so helping that, you know, you and I, and I'm older. Hate that word. I'm older than
well,
you.
I mean, you are older than me.
I know, but I'm older than you. But I have learned my greatest lessons in my life through failure, not through success. Mm-hmm. Normally, I've learned how to become successful by being a failure at something. So somebody had to teach me, or life taught me, right?
All right, final question.
Yeah.
How do you think that the gift of helps and, you know, those related gifts relate directly to leadership, and how should they coincide, like, in real life, you know, in a practical manner?
Well, this probably won't sit well with a lot of people, but Jesus said if you're going to be the greatest of all, you got to become the servant of all. And so a lot of people need to quit hiding behind a title and realize that leadership is servanthood. That's what leadership is. And Jesus humbled himself, became a man, lowered himself to the position of a slave, and then Paul said, turned around and said, let this mind be in you, which was also in him. And so just like you've seen me do, if we're working here at the church, I don't have to be here, but I'm usually here because I want people to see me down there on my hands and knees working alongside them. You and I met that way, laying carpet. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say to them, hey, we need to do this, but they never see their pastor doing it. And I don't want me to ever have an expectation on my staff. I need y'all to set up, I'm boring you, huh?
No, I'm just tired.
I'm setting up, our family fun day. You guys go out there and do that, and you work your tail off. And I'll tell you what, I'll just show up for the fun and get all the praise. No, I need to be out there working, picking up, doing what everybody else does. And there's a lot of preachers who don't do that. And to all of them, as much as I love them, I say shame on them. Shame on them, because it's not a representation of the way Christ does. Mm-hmm. Jesus said, if you can't wash my feet, you can't have any part of me. If we can't serve, we can't have any part of him. That's part of what it means to be a Christian. Again, it's not something we do, it's who we are. I don't have to run around looking for places to serve. They're everywhere. I just plug in wherever there's a need, and then we do what we got to do. Yeah, right. That's how I think it affects leadership.
Okay, well, that is the final question. That's all we have. So thank you for joining us yet again. This is the 5th episode in the series, so if you haven't seen the other ones, be sure to be checking those out. Some great information in those as well. And we have one more for this series, and then we'll be wrapping it up. But yeah, check out all of those, and like, subscribe, follow, share, comment, blah, 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 all those things. You got it. Just all the buttons you see, hit them. That's the instructions. But that is all we have, and we will see you in the next one.
All right.